Welcome to 805 Sports Talk. I'm Joe Bailey. Alongside me is Elliot Stern, and you may notice we have a new face here. This is Lorenzo J. Reyna. He will be covering the Lompoc Valley for us and our sports department here at the Santa Maria Times. Lorenzo, he's a local guy, so welcome aboard, and we're happy to have you on.
Thank you. My pleasure. This is a newspaper I grew up with. Being a kid from Lompoc and Santa Maria, reading up on some of the talent like Robin Ventura, Mark Brunell, and now I get a chance to see who's the next Mark Brunell and Robin Ventura. And one of my claim to fame was that I was the high school teammate of Dwayne Solomon. Probably know that name pretty well.
Yeah. So, we're glad to have you on board, and he's already shown that he has a wealth of knowledge in the area, so it's not going to take too long to get you up and running. So welcome aboard, and we look forward to having a great, playoff season with us, and the winter sports season is probably going to be a big one too, so welcome aboard. The big news over the weekend, obviously, is with the CIF's football playoffs here, where a couple of teams were left out. Now, the area teams, we have 3 area leagues, and no at-large teams were picked. So if you finished second or first in our area leagues, you were selected for the playoffs. If you didn't finish first or second, you were left out, and that left out Santa Maria and Santa Ynez. Now, Santa Ynez probably had a better case to make the playoffs. They're in Division 10. And the Pirates went 8-2 on the season, and they just missed out on those playoffs in Division 10. And if you look at that bracket, you'll notice a lot of 5-5 teams, 7-3 teams, and stuff like that. So, there are some really good teams in that division, but looking at Santa Ynez, if you go 8-2, you expect to make the playoffs. And a lot of people were kind of questioning what happened there, but really what it just comes down to is the guaranteed playoff spots to these certain leagues, and there was no room left for at-large teams, and Santa Ynez finished third in a really tough LPL. We know that St. Joseph is in that league. Lompoc is also in that league, so it's really tough for a school like Santa Ynez to finish in the top 2 in a league like that, and they have those 2 losses to Lompoc and St. Joseph, so they were left out despite an 8-2 record. There's really nothing they could have done more to make a playoff spot, because they're playing against teams. They're fighting for playoff spots against teams that are in weaker leagues with teams, they're just in Division 10. Lompoc is in Division 4, St. Joseph is in Division 5, and Santa Ynez is all the way down in Division 10. So they're in a real tough league playing with teams that are, 5-6 spots ahead of them. And you look at Santa Maria's case, it's pretty much the same scenario. They're in the Division 12, and they're in the same league as Nipomo, which is in Division 6. So that's a 6-spot difference. So Santa Maria has a real tough road to make the playoffs with how it is situated now. So I think the CIF is going to kind of have to look at things, see, if there's going to have to be a reduction of guaranteed spots, not have divisions where it's split up like this, where you're in a league with teams that are 6 spots higher than you, 4 spots higher than you, and you really have a really tough road to make the playoffs. If you look at the Frontier League in Division 12, Carpinteria and Fillmore, they both finished 4 and 6, but they finished in the top 2 in that league, so they got those automatic playoff spots, whereas Santa Maria finished 3rd, or tied for 2nd actually, in the Northern League, and they were left out. So it's really kind of a new situation here with the competitive equity divisions, and I think, the CIF didn't do anything wrong this past weekend, but with the way everything was set up, it just worked out where some teams really got the short end of the stick, and Santa Maria and Santa Ynez were really, 2 examples of that. I think it was kind of interesting how it played out for Mission Prep. They're in Division 10, and they did end up 4-5 on the season, and they finished 2nd in the Northern League, and they got a playoff spot. They're going to play DP in the first round of the playoffs, but they, kind of elected to forfeit a game earlier in the season, and it's almost like you get an extra bye because you forfeited a game. They didn't want to play Sierra Canyon. I don't really blame them for that. Sierra Canyon's the top seed in Division 4. Mission Prep's in Division 10, and they forfeited that game, but it kind of worked out for them in the end. They got an extra week to rest up, get right, and they ended up beating Santa Maria a couple weeks after, forfeiting, and everything kind of worked out in Mission Prep's favor, where they're 4-5, and they're in the playoffs, even though they forfeited a game earlier. So I don't know if the CIF wants to kind of look at something and say, if you're going to be forfeiting games, you may not get a chance in the playoffs. I'm not saying Mission Prep, purposely did that or anything, but just the way it worked out, forfeiting that game might have helped Mission Prep because they didn't have to play a tough non-league game that they signed up for. So it's really weird how it all kind of shook out. But Santa Maria and Santa Ynez at the end, they're left out, and this is the 2nd year in a row for Santa Ynez. You know, they've gone 15-5 the last 2 years, and they haven't made the playoffs. So, you know, it's a tough break for the Pirates. They had a great season either way, but some's got to change where they're going to be able to make the playoffs. And they didn't want to be left in that LPL as it was. They wanted, you know, maybe be in the Northern League or be in a different league after all those 3 leaguings happened a couple of years ago. So it's going to be real interesting to see how this plays out, what Santa Ynez wants to do to kind of, you know, give themselves a chance for the playoffs, because this is 2 years in a row now that's happened to them. And it's really tough, because talking to Coach McClurg over there, you know, they put in, you know, upwards of 50, 60 hours a week preparing for these games. They really want to make the playoffs, and here they are. They go 8-2, and they're left out. So, you know, we'll see what the CIF does. You know, the leagues are kind of in control there. I don't know if they'll want to change too much, but it's just real interesting to see that 2 area teams who we thought were going to be in were left out. No at-large bids were left. So, you know, we'll keep an eye on that situation, and, you know, maybe in a couple of years, some teams might not have to worry about that here, because they're thinking about moving to the central section. So that may motivate some teams to move on. It's just, once again, just an interesting situation. We'll see how it plays out for the winter sports seasons. But moving on to 8-man football, Elliot, you had a chance to see Orchid Academy's playoff game against Chadwick over the weekend, and I know you're going to get us caught up on some other sports as well.
I did. It's Chadwick is a private school that plays on the hills overlooking Los Angeles in the Palos Verdes Peninsula. That's the name of their little city. And Orchid Academy opened the season with a 62-34 victory at Santa Ynez High School over these same Chadwick Dolphins. But in the playoffs, Chadwick beat them 41-30 in 8-man. They play a 9-game season, so they started their playoffs earlier. And Chadwick beat them this time, and their coach, Tom Coates, said to me that they were an entirely different team from the first game to the last. And both schools, Doug May at Orchid Academy and Tom Coates at Chadwick, are first-year head coaches. So Doug May actually got a head start and got a chance to install his offenses and defenses over the summer. And it took Tom Coates and his staff a little longer to get them going, but as they did, they went on to an 8-2 regular season. And they did it behind 2 kids, E.J. Vaughn and Nick Benson. The 2 of them just ran over Orchid Academy. That was basically their game plan. Just give the ball to one of those 2 guys, mostly Devon. He ran 35 times in the game. Benson 22, 35 for 148 for E.J., and Benson had 97 yards on his 22 carries, and that was what they did. They pounded it in the middle. If they could get past the line of scrimmage and make the linebackers and defensive backs make the tackles, that was all right with them. 6 yards at a time, that was all they were looking for, but 6 yards 2 times in a row was a first down. So they just pounded away, and they wore Orchid Academy down. Orchid Academy actually had the lead. Early they scored. They then lost the lead not on the next possession, and they got back in the lead. It was all tied up at 14-all for a while, but then a couple of mistakes on the part of Orchid Academy hurt them with a bad punt and a turnover, a fumble. So the Dolphins were able to capitalize and came away with a 41-30 victory. Great year, 5-5. Orchid Academy ended up for Coach May, Doug May, in his first season, and he doesn't lose a whole lot of kids, so he's looking forward to bigger and better things next year as they play in Division I of the 8-man. Now we're winding down the football season, and we've still got all the high school playoffs, but we have a local guy in the hunt for a national championship, and that's going to happen, if it happens, this weekend in Pomona. The National Hot Rod Association's final race of the year is the Auto Club Nationals at the Pomona Raceway, the Auto Club Raceway in Pomona. And Ron Capps, who was born in San Luis, actually grew up in Santa Maria through middle school and then went back to San Luis for high school, and is not happy that his Tigers finished 0-10 this year in football. But he has an 86-point lead in the funny car race in the going into the final race of the year. Now there's 132 points possible if you win everything. You got to win. There are points for winning or second or third place in qualifying rounds, There's 20 points for the guy that does the best in qualifying, the low time of qualifying, and then there's basically 20 points available as you advance each round to the final. So with an 86-point lead over his own teammate Mac Hagan at the Don Schumacher Racing, he really has to make it into the semifinals, which would mean that it'd be only 40 points left to claim, and then he could be sure that Hagan would finish second. But Ron's been racing 19 years. He's finished 4th in the national championship race 4 times. That's more times than anybody in history. He has 50 race wins. That's second most to only John Force. This is the breakthrough season that he's been praying for 19 years. We talked extensively last weekend in Las Vegas. We spent a lot of time together, and he really wants this. And he knows the numbers that if he can make it into the second round, there's a good chance that he's got the championship. If he makes it into the semifinals, he should have it sewn up. So, but he's not counting his chickens, as the cliche goes. He's going to go out there and go racing. He's going to try and relax, but I don't see how a guy can really relax. But it's the qualifying is Friday and Saturday, and Sunday afternoon we'll have the answer if Ron Capps can break through for his first ever championship. So it's going to be an exciting weekend. I think I just might go down there, and we'll report on it for your Santa Maria Times. We'll have it on the website after qualifying and after the rounds of the final eliminations on Sunday. So join us for that. But really, the focus here is on football. The high school season is now this is it. This is what they played for. We've got 6 local teams, but 4 of them below San Luis Obispo that are really in it. Mission Prep is going to be in it, but we don't follow them nearly as much as we follow the guys that are south of there, and that would be Lompoc, St. Joe, Nipomo, and Arroyo Grande, and they're all kicking off Friday night, and it looks like everybody's going to start at 7.
So we talked about some teams that didn't make the playoffs. We talked about Orchid Academy losing its playoff game. Now we talk about the teams in our direct area who are going to be starting the playoffs. And Lorenzo, you had the chance to see Lompoc close its season in the big game. Kind of put it on Cabrillo 49-14, and now the Braves are going to take on Carter in the first round of the D4 playoffs. Kind of walk us through where the Braves are at and how you feel about this matchup with Carter and the division as a whole.
I really like this battle that's going to be happening this Friday between Carter and Lompoc, because I got a chance to do a little bit of scouting of Carter in the last 2 days. And, Carter actually is kind of similar to what Lompoc likes to do. They like running that read option offense. They have a quarterback who is a dual threat, can take it in and run with it. The defensively for the Lions, it's an exotic looking front. They like to go with 3 defensive linemen. Sometimes they employ 5 linebackers. Sometimes they go with 5 in the secondary, sort of like what St. Joseph likes to do. One of the things I want to point out, and I have a good feeling that these two are going to clash in this contest. Carter High has a young man by the name of Lamusu Toyola, class of 2018 guy, outside linebacker, also plays a little bit of tight end and running back. For anybody who follows UCLA and its recruiting or the UCLA football roster, he's the younger brother of the twin brothers Lenny and Lokini Toyola. Well, here's the kicker though. As we all know in this area, Toatawa has his older brother Anu, who's on the UCLA roster as well. So there's that UCLA connection that's going to be in this contest this Friday. Now, to answer your question, Joe, about the Division 4 slate for Lompoc, as they say in soccer, it's definitely a group of death. You got Sierra Canyon, the number 1 seed at 10-0, and being able to scale past their schedule. I know Sierra Canyon had beaten a very stout Paso Robles team that was on fire, having beat 3 different Central Section opponents. Also in this bracket, Cajon out of San Bernardino, being led by Jaden Daniels, who's one of the more highly touted 2019 quarterbacks in the recruiting class. Now, one of the big key teams that I might be looking at, especially down the road, if Lompoc advances that far, is Corona Del Mar. Corona Del Mar is currently led by a Cal quarterback commit in Chase Garbers. Also has Tay Lee, who's arguably the top tight end in the class of 2018 down in Orange County. So it is a stacked field. Carter definitely, Carter is I would definitely say that Carter is not Cabrillo. I mean, I would anticipate that it's going to be a lot more competitive for the Braves this time around on Friday. But here's some things that I want to mention about Carter. They're 0-4 against teams that have won 7 games or more, so that bodes well for the Braves in this contest. And defensively, they do surrender a lot of points. I noticed that they surrender an average of 31.6 points per game, so there's still some favorable matchups in this contest between Lompoc and Carter, and this looks like it's going to be the first official game I get to cover for the Santa Maria Times.
Although you have covered a couple for us as a freelancer in the last few weeks. Here's what I think you need to know about this game. Lompoc's going to kill them. Carter is 5-5 overall. They play in a big league, an 8-team league, and they're 3-4 in their own league. When you look at the seedings, Lompoc is number 2 overall. Carter's number 15. They're number 15 for a reason. Usually the number 15s and 16s are sacrificial lambs for the first week so that the higher seed can get its playoff legs and get ready for the next week with few injuries, and I just don't see that Carter can hang with them. You know, when you're playing a 3-4 in your own league and teams can score on you, I don't think it's going to strike fear into the heart of Andrew Jones. Now, Andrew is a meticulous coach. He's not going to just say, well, they're 5-5, they can be scored on, they give up a lot of points, we score a lot of points, and then look ahead to next week. He's going to prepare these kids and make sure they're ready for Carter, and Carter's going to be toast by the middle of the second quarter. I don't see this as a competition at all. It'll be fun, nice tune-up, and then they'll go on to more serious competition because the seedings will get tougher.
I think Lompoc's going to win this game, and I think Lompoc would be the favorites, but this isn't, you know, the divisions that Lompoc was in before. This is, you know, based on power rankings, past performance of the last, I think, 2-year cycle, and I think this Division 4 is actually going to be a lot tougher than Lompoc is used to. I think the Braves are going to win this game. I wouldn't be surprised if they, you know, go to the semifinals. I wouldn't be surprised if they're in the finals. But I think this is has a little more depth than we're used to. This isn't the Northwest Division where Lompoc won 2 championships. You know, we've seen them kind of have a tougher road when they were in the Western Division and, you know, the Northern Division and stuff like this. But now it's the Division 4. I think it's a little more depth to it. And I think Carter is a respectable team. I think, you know, they're 5-5 playing down there in the Rialto area, the SoCal area. It's a lot tougher. But I think, you know, I don't think it's going to be quite a pushover. But I think the Braves will find their groove probably around the second quarter and kind of take off. And I think not having Dallas Canley, you look at that and think, you know, they'll be okay. The Braves have so much depth at running back. But Dallas Canley, he's a huge player. He's a senior. You know, he's a second leading rusher. And on that defense, he's huge. He's pretty much a lockdown corner. I've seen him lock down some of the best receivers in the area. So I think that if Dallas isn't here for the playoffs, that's a huge loss for the Braves. Someone's got to step up. You know, I guess Ruben Cortez is going to be the guy to get more carries there. But on that defensive side, someone's going to have to step up. I don't know if it's going to be, you know, Johnny Manziel's going to play more one-on-one coverage because they pretty much leave Dallas on that edge on an island and let him cover their best guy. He did well against Gabe Prendergast. You know, he did well when they played St. Joe, so against those receivers. So I don't know who Lompoc is going to shift over to have that coverage with Dallas being out.
I have an idea, and it's a guy who's caught my attention from this game and just throughout the whole season, Shamar Savage. I've seen him have a good nose for the football, and not only that, he's given the Braves an added passing element. I mean, when you got a big 6'4", close to 190-pound receiver, I mean, he's already going to pose those matchup problems. So I actually wouldn't be shocked if Andrew Jones actually goes to him early just to kind of set the tone in this game.
Yeah, Shamar looked great in that St. Joe game on defense, on offense, and he's done exactly what you said, you know, with that passing threat. And, you know, he missed all of last year. You know, he was banged up, and now he's healthy. That guy's a specimen, dude. I wouldn't be surprised if some colleges start sniffing around for him because he's huge. He can fly, and he's going to turn into a great receiving threat. So I wouldn't be surprised if he's playing college football one day.
He's a nice kid, and on a team of all-stars, he has won the Northern Santa Barbara County Athletic Roundtable's Athlete of the Week. And when you think of all the talent on that team, and he's not the only one from that school that picked up an award during the season, but he has. So the Roundtable voters have noticed that he's really an important key to that offense. I just see there's just too much offensive weapons. And you talk about the divisions, the higher divisions, Division 1, 2, and 3, they have fewer teams in them, and I was going to get to that later, and maybe we'll come back to it. So, but as you get down to 4, 5, 6, they have more teams, and then the lower divisions have a lot of teams. So in the Division 4, it's still only about a 25-team division. That means 16 get in, so bad teams can still get in the playoffs. That division is dominated by 3 schools all year in the voting, and I see them easily becoming 3 of the top 4. And those semifinal games are going to be brutal, but I don't see Lompoc having a whole lot of trouble to get that far.
Yeah, and I think one of the tougher first-round games for, our area is St. Joseph. They do get a home game. They did go 6-4, but they got to host a Fullerton Troy team Friday night. They're in Division 5. I think that's a tough division for them. I think they can do okay there. But, I think they're going to have their hands full Friday night. They do have some momentum. They played really well toward the end of the season. Talking to Dustin Davis a couple weeks ago, that's why they played this schedule. They played St. Bonnie. They played Notre Dame earlier in the year, and this is why, so they can prepare for this, late part of the season. And we saw them, kind of struggle against Lompoc, but then they just poured it on against Santa Ynez and won 51-17 over there in Santa Ynez. So I think St. Joseph is playing well. I'm not too familiar with what Troy wants to do Friday night against them, but if St. Joseph can execute and do what they do, I do expect them to be in that game. But that's a tough first round matchup for them to host a 7-3 team in the first round. They did go 6-4, but at least they do get to play a home game as a second seed out of the LPL. Lorenzo, what do you think about St. Joseph and their first round matchup? What do you think they got to do to be successful?
You got to really establish your run right away, because when I saw St. Joseph against Pioneer Valley, they went straight to handing the football off to Cole, also getting Guzman involved as well. And, I definitely agree with you, Joe, that this is a tough out. Not only so much facing a 7-3 team to kick off the playoffs, but waiting in the wings if St. Joseph wins is Calabasas, the #1 overall seed in Division 5.
Yeah. You can't look ahead to that, though. You got to get past Fullerton first. Mm-hmm. And the thing that concerns me about Fullerton is they can score. Mm-hmm. They went 7-3 overall, 3-2 in a very tough league. In the 3 games that they lost, they didn't do anything. But in the 7 that they won, they were scoring 30, 35 points. So they're going to pose a challenge for St. Joe's defense. Now, we know that St. Joe has Guzman and Cole, and Cole can do anything. I mean, he can be a quarterback, although Dino Maldonado's the quarterback. But he can throw the ball, he can run with the ball. He's had some spectacular games as a running back. He's their best wide receiver. But Guzman is terrific. I saw him make a catch earlier this year that would have made the ESPN top 10. He just laid out and caught a ball that just should not have been caught. So they got some talent, and they can score some points. So this is on the defense. Can you keep these guys below 37? Or can you score 42 and win the game 42-37? So I look at this as one of the best games to open the playoffs, and St. Joe is really going to have its hands full with a tough Troy team. It's one of those that we talk about. You flip a coin and go, all right, heads at St. Joe. All right, I'm going with St. Joe, because you just don't know that this is a really good matchup, and they're right in the middle of the bracket. Excuse me. So. These teams are more evenly matched, and I'm rooting for the home guys, so I'll go with St. Joe, but it's going to be a coin flip.
That front 3, I mean, they not only have to set the tone for this game, but I think Fenton Will, that outstanding linebacker for St. Joseph, he also has to find a way to set the tone for these guys as well, because one of the things I noticed from that Pioneer Valley game with that shutout is that when Fenton Will is all over the field, it just brings just this swagger, so to speak, on the St. Joseph sideline. So the three big guys up front, and then Fenton Will, they definitely have to come through in a big way.
Yeah, we spent a lot of time focusing on that St. Joseph offense, but that defense it has been huge this year. They had a 3-game shutout streak. Fenton Will is huge. Noah Lossing on that D line, and then DJ DeRissi on that back end, and one guy who doesn't get a lot of credit has been Zachary Morris. In that Lompoc game, he had a couple of huge hits, and he just laid out Dallas Canley. that's one of our options for play of the year. And I think Zachary Morris has been a real stud. He had a pick 6 last week. So we tend to focus on that St. Joseph offense with Guzman and C.J. Cole and even Trevor Cole and, the quarterback Dino Maldonado. But that defense has played really well this year. And I think it's going to be a test against Troy. And just in that division, it's going to be a real test for that defense. And, I'm sure no one's looking ahead, and Calabasas still has to win its first round game. But that Calabasas team is like pretty much a D1,
I've seen
a
them
D1
play.
team, dude. Yeah, I think they got Keyshawn Johnson Jr., Darnay Holmes.
Tristan Gebbia.
Yeah.
We can go on and on.
And I don't know if they belong in that division, but Calabasas, whoever faces them next, assuming they win the first round game, is going to be a monumental task to beat those guys. So that division's stacked as well. We see that 1 through pretty much 5 in CIF Southern Section is just stacked, really top heavy within those divisions. And one team who's in Division 6, and that's still a tough matchup, is Nipomo. They have to host Lancaster Paraclete, and I've heard Paraclete talking to Russ Edwards the other day. He's the offensive coordinator, former coach. Says Paraclete, this is going to be just a huge task. It's a private school out there in Lancaster, and they're stacked. I think they played Sierra Canyon really tough. They're in a really tough league. So, Nipomo, I think they played really well to close out the season, 6-4. We saw that game against Santa Maria Friday night. It was a 19-14 win. Pretty much Isaac Bosley just carried that team nearly 270 yards rushing, had 2 touchdowns, and they hit a big pass play late. I think Nipomo has played well, but that's another really tough first-round matchup for our local team. Nipomo taking on Paraclete. I don't know if you've seen Nipomo too much this year. They like to run the ball a lot, and they've been real successful with Isaac Bosley. How do you feel about Nipomo's first-round matchup against Paraclete?
This is definitely a huge mountain that they have to scale, because not only that, Paraclete, from what I remember, also knocked off St. Bonaventure earlier this year, a Division II team. So it goes to show you how insurmountable this matchup is for Nipomo.
Nipomo, excuse me, as you just mentioned that St. Bonnie, that Paraclete beat St. Bonnie. There's actually, St. Bonaventure comes in key to me because we talk about common opponents, and St. Bonaventure beats St. Joe. But Paraclete beat St. Bonaventure, and later on we'll talk about it, but Westlake beat St. Bonaventure as 2 of their 4 losses on the year, and they're going to be playing against Arroyo Grande. So this is going to be a tough match. Both teams ended up 6-4, but St. Joe talks about playing teams like St. Bonnie and Notre Dame or Sherman Oaks early in the season so that they can be ready for the league season and toughens them up and lets them know what they've got to do to be among the elite teams. Well, this is one of those teams. If Paraclete can beat St. Bonaventure, now they also play Oaks Christian, and they lost to that Oaks Christian, which is regularly a powerhouse type of program, but that's one of those teams like Notre Dame, Sherman Oaks. So they've played tough competition. And I see that they're battle tested. This is going to be another one of these close games, but I think Paraclete can win this one on the road. They scored a decent number of points when they were winning. And Nipomo can beat the Northern League competition and hang tough with the Los Padres League competition, but I don't know that they can beat this Paraclete team. But it's going to be interesting.
Yeah, Tony Dodge says that we look at St. Joe's preseason schedule and Lompoc's preseason schedule and AG. They play tough, but I think Nipomo plays one of the toughest preseason schedules as well. They played Lompoc, they play AG, they typically play Atascadero, and they'll play some Pac-5 league teams. They play a really tough non-league schedule as well, preseason schedule as well. And I think they have to because the Northern League is pretty good, but it doesn't quite have that depth, with the Morro Bay or Templeton in there. And I think Nipomo really does do its job to prepare for these postseason runs with playing a tough preseason schedule, and we've seen that kind of work to their benefit. They made the semifinals last year, and then they won the Northwest Division title 2 years ago. But now they're up in Division 6, which is, that's a big jump.
That's right.
I think Northwest Division was kind of like in the 10, would be the 10 to 11 kind of range, and now they're up in Division 6. They do have a home game, but I think it's going to be tough against Paraclete. I don't know.
And Tony Dodge is a really good coach. He starts the season with the Tony Dodge way, and then he sees how the kids perform in that, and he sees how they are, and he adjusts as he goes and changes his offense and changes his defense to adapt to the talents of the young men that are playing for him. And you see his teams get better and better and better. But like you said, they're in a big division, and that I think is going to work against them. This competitive equity is going to take everybody some getting used to in this first year of it. I think Nipomo might be in a division or two too high. So, but I wish him luck, but I see Paraclete coming away with a win in this one.
Yeah, that's kind of your reward for success in the postseason. You get bumped up to Division 6, you know. Maybe they should be like, all right, maybe you're a division or two up and not move them all the way up to Division 6, but whatever they put into that formula and the equation, that's what comes out. So, you know, their Nipomo is in Division 6.
Well, we've seen it in other sports. Rigetti got bumped up Division 1 and to Division 1 in water polo. Arroyo Grande got there in girls tennis bumped up to Division 1, and that might be a little high, but they've earned the respect and their records. They play tough non-league competitions, so they got bumped up. So, you know, it can work against you. We saw St. Joe's girls get bumped way up to Division 3 when they shouldn't have been that in basketball. And after Ali Beebe graduated and some of those other Brianna Bognudas and Kelsey English all graduated, they just didn't have the team, and they floated back down. So there is that every couple of years they'll adjust it, but I think it's going to take them a while to get it right.
Yeah, and so we stay in SLO County, but move from Division 6 where Nipomo is and all the way up to Division 2 where AG is. And they were so close to being in Division 3, but they are in Division 2. They've won 9 straight games, but they host Westlake Friday night. Westlake went 3-7, but they did make the playoffs. AG is 9-1, and following the Twitter feed from the Ventura County Star, they said that Westlake's coach was actually happy for this matchup. He wanted to play AG, so I think AG might be like, why do you guys want to play us? Nobody wants to play us. You know, usually nobody wants to play AG in the area. They won 9 straight games. Sawyer May was just dynamite in their regular season finale against SLO. He went like 12 of 14 with like 4 touchdowns. You know, they've been running the ball great all year. So here Westlake comes in, and they got to take on AG, who's won 9 straight games. How do you feel about that matchup, Lorenzo?
All right, I want to go first to Tony Haney, if anybody follows him on Twitter. He's the only high school football coach I know who actually talks about rap lyrics and Star Wars. I mean, he's an oddball, but, you know, somehow he managed to save his season with Westlake, because they did go against a murderous schedule with a school from Texas that was on their schedule, Oaks Christian, but they did scale that St. Bonaventure hurdle, which we mentioned earlier today. But, you know, I mean, there's still that travel aspect. They have to come up 2 hours to take on an Arroyo Grande team that's been red hot, and you got arguably one of the top linebackers on the AG roster in Sam Ness. And I don't know how this guy is so under-recruited, because he looks like a guy who can play in the Mountain West, maybe possibly even an Oregon State or an Oregon. And, you know, I mean, Oregon needs all the help it can get, but, you know, I tend to swing more towards Arroyo Grande in this matchup. I mean, just when that running game gets going and when that defense gets going, I mean, AG is a monster, and I'm sure you guys have seen it yourselves as well.
Well, yeah, Westlake beat St. Bonaventure and Camarillo for their 2 league wins, but so they were 2-1 in a small league. And they're 3-7 overall, and they're in the playoffs. And this is where I was going to get on my soapbox about maybe changing the size of the divisions, because there's only like 19 teams in the division, so 16 are going to get into the playoffs. That means a 3-7 team is in the playoffs, because it did go 2-1 in its league. Whereas you get down into the Division 10, 11, 12, they've got 30 to 40 teams in the division with only 16 getting in. There's a whole lot of teams that don't get in. So maybe they should make some of those top divisions that are 18 and 19 and 24 and 25, bring it down so that there's more like 32 teams to a division, so half of them get in, and we might find that's really where competitive equity is. Or if not 32, 24, so that 16 out of 24 get in, and make it more even. And a 39-team division or a 43-team division leaves a lot of kids out, where you could split those into 2 16 or 2 20-team divisions and get more teams in, and then Santa Maria would be in the playoffs with their 5-5 record, and Santa Ynez with an 8-2 record. But here, Westlake with a 3-7 record is going to the playoffs. But you know what, they play a tough schedule. They've beaten St. Bonaventure, the same St. Bonaventure team that beat St. Joe, but this is also the same Arroyo Grande team that beat St. Joe, and I think Westlake may get its wish that they're going to play at Arroyo Grande, but they're going to lose at Arroyo Grande. There's not many people that can beat Arroyo Grande, and the only ones that have been able to do it consistently over the last few years is Lompoc.
Yeah. So we're definitely excited to bring you guys a lot of Friday football coverage. The playoffs are here, so be sure to check out Santa Maria Times on Saturday morning. Follow us all Friday night. We're not doing a webcast Friday night, but we'll be able to bring you, live updates through Twitter. We'll post a bunch of stories Friday night online. Also, be sure to check out our Play of the Year vote online. We've, broadcast 11 games this season, and we got some great plays from all the games, and you can vote for your top play from, a certain game. I think leading right now is Zachary Morris's big hit. So, get in there, see some of the best plays that we've seen all year, and you can have a vote for which you think was the best one. We also have our Player of the Week voting, and, we got a lot of good water polo coverage as well. Rigetti plays Wednesday. Check out that coverage, and we got another doubleheader Thursday with Nipomo and Santa Ynez water polo. A lot of playoff action is here, and we're excited to bring you all the coverage that we can.
So that's going to do it for us for this week. Remember to check out everything, all the sports online and in print in your Santa Maria Times. But that's going to do it. So thanks for joining us. We'll see you again next week on 805 Sports Talk.